Hi there. This Pastor Mike coming to you with an opportunity here for me to tell you thank you. Just a few days ago in our leadership roundtable, one of our key leaders was saying some things from the heart that we need to consider. And I believe even challenged me as a pastor to take a moment to just express thanksgiving for all who have served for a tenure of time. In my heart of hearts, I think I'm quite diligent in trying to do so. But here's the truth of life. You never can say thank you enough. You never can appreciate people enough. As we get ready to go into our 2023 campaign, some of our key leaders have served faithfully, some 6 years, some since our inception, some 4 years. And I gave all of our leaders an opportunity to really consider, have they grown weary in the wilderness of doing the work of the ministry? And all of us can. I would not sit here and tell you pastor sometimes doesn't get weary. I do. And I look up and see who can help me and stand in the gap just until I can get some strength. And many of you have served and been faithful in the work of the ministry, and God knows I thank God for you. And sometimes in silence, a lot of stuff can go on in your head. It's like a wife saying to her husband, "You still love me?" And he's saying, "I'm paying the bills, ain't I? Right? I come home every night just to you. What you mean?" It's not that his work doesn't imply that he loves. It's just verbal. She needs verbal consent and affirmation. And so I wanted to take a moment, especially to all of my leaders who have resigned for good reason. You want to pass it off to someone else. You've been in the position a long time. And you believe the trusting of the ministry to someone else can take it further. And this is my ask, my one ask of each and every one of you. And that's make sure you support them. Don't get lackadaisical in your heart in doing heartily work before God and service. The Bible says anything thy hands find to do, do it, and do it heartily before God. We still need you. But I want to take a moment in this acronym and I want to say thank you for serving. Serve. S is to thank God for you for your sharing. You know, to serve really takes a lot of sharing of yourself, of your emotions, of being involved, sharing with people of difference, people who work with you in the work of the ministry. You share your ideas, you share your heart, you share complaint, you comfort them in your sharing to keep them encouraged so that we all can just provide the best possible experience for our church. And I thank you all for sharing for so many. We won't even talk about funerals. Won't even talk about showing up at waits or going to people's home during those times of bereavement. But I thank each and every one of you for your heart of sharing. That's what S stands for in serve, is sharing. The E in serve stands for empathy. I think we have some of the greatest people in the world who care. I've got so many memories that flood my heart and members that were going through things, even myself. I've always been on one end, and that is reaching for the members, being there for when people have died and went on and be with the Lord, or being there in critical situations and eviction, being there in the midst of conflict. But to have my mom pass and the church family really rallied around and came by the house and called and sent cards, your empathy is just not for the strangers, for your shepherd. And I thank you in your service that you have empathy for strangers. Sometimes we are criticized at our church that we have more empathy for strangers than we do for each other. But I beg to differ, and I continue to encourage you to practice that same empathy. Empathy is just the fact that you know what someone else is going through because you went through some things yourself. Sharing. Empathy. The R in serve is your resources. Many things you bought to support an event, things you bought to sponsor candy for youth, sponsor the child for impact. You bought some out of your pocket so the church made sure it had ice. I mean, it could be even the smallest thing, but you use your resources to show you serve. And if you had a tally of the things that you would build a church, if you was angry to say, look, this is what y'all owe me, we couldn't pay all of you back. But I thank you And it is always my prayer that everything that you sacrifice for the work of the ministry, don't you ever forget, and I must remind myself of it all the time. You want to know what it is? That God will surely repay. That's what keeps me going. And I have never seen God allow me to give and hadn't been frugal and bless me abundantly, me and my family, as an end result of my sacrifice unto the work of the kingdom. Thank you for your resources. V. I really hate to say it, but it's just true when working in ministry. Thank you for playing the victim. Victimization is just a part of it. Jesus proves that when he goes to Calvary's Hill for salvation. They beat him. They pulled hair out of his beard. They tore flesh from his body. He was serving. He was serving the purpose of God, and look how they treated him. And some of you felt like you've been spit in the face. You feel like people don't say thank you. You feel like people could have just had a different attitude towards you and didn't know all the hard work and sacrifice you did to make that event happen. And I just tell you, welcome to being like Jesus. But the Bible says in Philippians 3:10 that we share with him in the fellowship of sufferings, that we may be conformed into the image of Christ. And victimization is a part of the work of the ministry. We can't protect people from it. It is what it is. The pastor's going to go through it. The parishioner's going to go through it. From the parking lot to the pulpit, everybody's going to suffer some victimization. But my prayer is in that victimization that even if somebody who had a bad attitude, they were able to encounter someone who had a good one. That even in them mistreating, Paul mistreating that deacon on that day and killing him, only to be converted by the very killing that he did. It touched his life. And our victimization is supposed to be to the glory of God and for people to be able to see how you ought to act in the midst of conflict. And I thank you for bearing victimization in many situations in our church. And I love you and appreciate you for standing and upholding Christ's conduct in the midst of conflict. And then the last thing in serving is endurance. 10 years. 15 years, 4 years, 1 year, whatever your 10-year time was that you felt that now it just had reached a plateau to be able to pass off that duty to someone else, I say thank you. Because we need it every week, week in, week out, every day, every year, faithful group of people to help support the local church in its campaign. And I thank you because we couldn't have taking the ministry further without your endurance. And I want you to know today that you appreciate it. So I wanted to take a moment and just appreciate you if you're getting this. And I just pray that it will just increase your commitment to the work of the ministry and that you would know your shepherd absolutely loves you. I thank you for everything you've done behind the scene. I thank you for the sacrifices you made that got no recognition. I thank you for the way you serve. But no matter what I say to you and how you have served, can I say this to you? Nothing will feel better than to hear the Lord say one day, "Thy good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things. Come on up, I'll make you rule over much." Don't you forget that the greatest encore and applause will come from Jesus himself. I love you. Thank you for your support.
Oh yeah. God's been good to me. I just can't tell it all. Whether the trial or tribulation